So pretty much everywhere I go, people always come up to me and say, YYZ slash Johnny, you're a 50-year-old, never was. I really want to know how you bend notes in the guitar. To which I would say, sure, I'll tell you, but I figure it would be faster if I just told everybody at once. So I'm going to give a brief lesson on bending. I'm going to divide it into two parts. The first part is how to bend, what you're actually trying to do, and the second part is going to be how I use bends in the major scale. So, important things about bending notes. I'm doing all of this in C major, A minor. I think the two most important things are, or three most important things, bending smoothly, bending accurately, and maybe the most important one, bending with purpose. Bending smoothly is pretty obvious. You know, if you're trying to get to you want to smoothly get to that note. If you're getting slowly to it, or you're changing how you get to it, it doesn't sound quite right. And it's also very important to be accurate. When you bend flat, like if you're trying to get here and you do this, it just doesn't ever sound very good. Similarly, if you go a little bit sharp. And the last thing about bending is you need to have a destination in mind. I hear a lot of people play and they are doing what I call, quote, bending to nowhere. They'll just be playing and just kind of bending, but it's not going to any particular note. There's no consistency to it, and it doesn't make musical sense. So back to technique for just a second. Don't be afraid to use more than one finger bending. I've got fairly, decent hands, but I'm not always trying to do one-fingered bends. I mean, you can, but it's much easier to just get a second finger on there. To help. Regarding being accurate, that's just practice, and there's two ways to do it. If you have a good ear, you simply find the note you want to go to, and you practice bending to that note consistently. If you don't have a good ear, it's actually nice if you have a decent tuner. It's nice to use a tuner and practice getting to the note you want to get to quickly, directly using a tuner. It doesn't sound good if you're searching for the note. That's what I was trying to say smoothly. If you're kind of searching for the note when you're bending, it doesn't sound good. It's better, just like singing, you just bend right to that note rather than seeking it from below or above. Most of that's just practice. Like I said, maybe the most important thing is having a goal in mind when you're bending. So if you're playing the C major scale, you want to bend two notes in the scale. So if I want to bend to C, I mean, the easiest way to do is to start at B, so always think in terms of where you want to go. This is a nice note here. I'm bending on purpose to get to that note. It's So getting to notes, and you mimic a run using the note. So instead of, you go. The notes are just part of the run you're making. Also, adding vibrato to a note, especially a long hanging note, I really think it sounds better if you get to the note and then add the vibrato rather than have the vibrato going all the way through the bend. Just personal preference. That's shamelessly stolen from David Gilmour, who talked about mimicking the human voice with, hitting a note, then adding vibrato rather than vibratoing as you are going through the bend. So, key points: practice your accuracy. Accuracy and smoothness are basically the same thing. You want to go right to the note that you're trying to get to. Most importantly, know the destination, know what you're trying to accomplish. Just simply bending a note, if it doesn't land on a note in the scale you're trying to play, generally doesn't sound good. So for the last part of this quote-unquote lesson, I'm going to put a looper in, and I'm just going to show some typical bends that I like to use. And there's notes in the scale that I like to hit, and that's where I'll typically go. So notes I like to hit would be, if I'm playing the fifth position of the C major scale. This is a C. I like to hit that note. This is an A. I like to hit that note. I don't know what this note this is. A D, maybe this is a D. Maybe not. Whatever note that is, I like to hit that one as well. So, and I don't particularly like this note. So I rarely, once in a while, that's if I'm in a Gilmour mood. But I'll play along with a looper a second, just emphasizing bends that I like. Well, before we do that, I'm going to talk briefly about bending two strings at the same time for effect. Two ways to do that. Either you're bending a string to the note, to your goal note, while you're holding the goal note with another hand. So I'm trying to bend to this note from here, and but I'll hold it at the same time. That's a nice effect. Another thing to do is to bend into a harmony. So I'm going to bend to this note, but at the same time I'm going to hold this note. And you can do three. So I'll play along with the looper for just a second. Hopefully it picks up. And this is the scale. So probably my favorite bends will be a two-step bend to the A. Another one I like is bending to the C from the B, or down from the C to the B. Another one is to bend the G string, third finger, 2 frets. Another favorite of mine is to bend from my second finger in this position. I also like to, I use this note in this scale instead of playing it here. And I like to bend from there up a half step. Other things I like to do is I like to leave this position, go up 2 frets on the B string, and bend and that hangs. It's a hanging note. It's this, I'm going to call it a sixth here. So I'm bending to this note. Where this is nice is you can add the resolving note. So the resolving note. You can also add a second note in there. Or the other way around. I occasionally will bend the wound strings, but you really got to know where you're bending to because they don't bend very far. So if I wanted to hit a I don't do that as much. So the typical bends I use most frequently, probably this one. And bending to the target notes. Running out of ideas on what to tell you guys about bending. The big takeaways are, probably the biggest thing is know where you're going to. Don't just randomly bend notes. Work on hitting them pretty accurately. I'm not accurate all the time, but I try my best. And bend along a run. Bend with the flow of the music. The bend has to be part of the solo you're trying to do. So that's that. Thanks for listening.